Thank you, Sean. The last... Oh, what an audience. Thank you. The last 2 days have been fascinating for me because I come from the music business where we all struggle with dreadful statistics and a freefall. So to hear such a group enthusing about emotions, for instance, and connection, which is something that's inherently present in music, is very exciting for me because that's a property the music industry can bring and something that we can actually help exploit. And that is actually where our name comes from, because I was watching a fantastic series called Deadwood, which was all about digging for gold in the Dakota Hills. And I was struggling with how to name this. And I thought, well, we're digging for the gold in music. And how are we going to do that? Well, we're mining it. And I thought, but we're also trying to personalize it with interactivity. So that's why we named it Music Mine. I want to thank also Michael for a really excellent presentation, which resonated a lot with me, not least because we're out looking for money in a recession, which is just awful, I've got to say. But I'm glad to see his success. And you won't have heard about us because we've been busy polishing our product. So if you go to a website, you'll just see a quick demonstration and the rest is in secret. So I founded this company with my partners, and we wanted to ask or answer one very big question, which is on everybody's lips in the music industry: why does nobody pay for music anymore? And it's extraordinary because music is compelling, people connect with music, everybody has a personal story with some music, so why won't they pay for it anymore? And I struggled with this, and we discussed it, and then we looked at the ringtones and the ringtone market. What's happened there? Well, it used to be $4.5 billion a year, but now we're told by all the experts that it's falling off. Why? What is happening? And I thought, well, I travel around the place and I hear ringtones, I hear personal ringtones all the time. There is an appetite for it, yet nobody's prepared to pay for it. Well, would I pay £3 for a piece of content that everybody else has and therefore is not personal, and I can get myself for free? But plainly I wouldn't, so maybe the product's wrong. So I then thought, well, maybe that's true of music in general. And so to draw an analogy with you, good folks, this is where you are, and this is a super sophisticated product that I don't pretend to understand, but that is how you've evolved away from Pong. The music business, on the other hand, is around here. They're trying to sell Space Invaders to people who are used to Call of Duty. It's out of context, it's not sophisticated enough, it doesn't fit into the world of your average music buyer. It's irrelevant. They think it's like stealing a pencil. I had a great story, example the other day of asking a teenage girl where she got Eminem. She was 13 and she was listening to it and she said, oh, Pirate Bay. I thought, oh, fair enough, you and everybody else. And then I showed her my iPad and I showed her Plants vs. Zombies. And she said, oh, that's cool. How much did it cost? And I thought that was a fascinating difference, that this generation is actually not about stealing, it's about what value they place on things. So she didn't expect to get things for free at all. It's not a free generation, it's just you have to have the appropriate value. And this, for recorded music, is not the appropriate value. Then we come to, why did this happen? What has been going on? Why is the music business falling off a cliff and lost the plot? And I like to call it digital damage, or the perfect technology storm, really. 3 things happened. First of all, the CD format came along, and that digitized everything. And what it also did was create an enormous amount of greed within the music companies, because they were reselling the product to the same person. So I would have something on vinyl, and I would then go out and buy it on a CD. An immense amount of money came in to the labels. The multinationals, like Vivendi, who are essentially, I think, a water company, which shows you how ridiculous the whole thing is, came in and said, oh, look, there's lots of money to be had in the music industry. Let's put a lot of labels together and call it a major. And that's what happened. But they then sent in the accountants and the business affairs people, and they looked at the music business as it was then and said, we don't need all these people in the back, taking drugs and doing all sorts of fun things. No, we're a manufacturing company, and what we're going to do is strip it down to basics and shift boxes because we're making CDs. So they cut their margins down, got rid of the people who understood the music business, and they therefore created a dearth of knowledge about how you actually innovate and how you grow talent. And that was the first problem that happened. The second, at the same time, was sampling, same digital technology, And this meant two things. First of all, absolutely everybody that wanted to could make music, which meant there was not that natural filter of having to learn the instrument and go gigging and really put your heart and soul into what creates a great musician. Anybody could do it. I could do it. I'm a crap guitarist, but I love doing it. I could release my own track and expect people to listen to it. So there's suddenly a deluge of content coming up. And of course, second of all, they could copy everything that was on the CD format. So here's a big problem. And this is where the plot really starts to get nasty, in that the internet's around as well. So there's a perfect distribution mechanism just to shoot out terrible content and also the copied, pirated content. And this has caused this perfect storm, which has meant that there is no clear vision or direction within the music industry. And I think this is very aptly shown by how it's evolved, going back to the Space Invaders analogy. Well, you could listen to something on vinyl, it moved on to stereo, then it moved on to a CD, great, it's digital, and then we had cassettes, which actually were playlists, so we can't really say that's an innovation. And then we've got the iPod, of course, which is a fantastic product, but it's about distribution again. And the greatest innovation there, I think, is shuffle, which is wonderful. I love it. I'm not going to rubbish it as a product. But the actual music, the experience that people are enjoying is exactly the same as it was decades and decades ago. And I think that's why it has lost its value. Then we come to how that has evolved into the industry space. And you see this passive old product, which has tremendous value for people like iTunes, because they use it to drive hardware sales. Then you have Spotify, which is a fantastic service. I actually pay for it. But it reinforces the idea that music can be for free. It does migrate away, people away from piracy, but it does kind of enforce the idea that you don't have to pay for it. And that's all about the old-fashioned music. Then you have you guys, who really stormed in and made people take notice, and you did it by interacting with music. Now around here, start to get interesting and think, well, what's going on? Because on the right-hand side, you have their USP is to have a vast selection. You've got to have 6 million songs. Now, I buy SingStar, a couple of people here who know SingStar well and created it, and they have forced me to be brutalized by my stepdaughter who sings ABBA. Now, there's an extraordinary thing about that. First off is that ABBA was never cool, yet a 10-year-old is singing it with her friends, uploading it. And secondly, I've paid quite a lot of money for a single piece of content. Well, it has maybe 30, 40 songs on it, but the margins are really good. There is a big difference here. So where I see the opportunity, I'm not sure if you can see the lines up there, is in the intersection of what are two Venn diagrams, which is to bring the interactivity and the compelling nature of interacting music out of the consoles and into the music business mainstream. And there's an awful lot of money to be made there. And that starts to make me think, well, going back to how much content is available on SingStar or Guitar Hero, let's have a look at, analyze that. So I think Rock Band has sold, when I looked at it, was 60 million downloads, but only from 400 artists. And they pay twice the amount that you would to buy the track on iTunes, if you bought it on iTunes, of course, which is questionable. Dig a bit deeper, and I find from the BPI that in 2008, there were 13 million songs for sale. Of those 13 million, 10 million didn't sell once. Not once. Of the remainder, 57,000 songs created 80% of the revenue. So what I worked out is that that's staggering. We're actually chasing the wrong tail, because it's not about the long tail at all. This is about artists. This is about the connection that the fans have with their artists. And the way to make money is to broaden that and deepen that, and to make sure that there's a continuous dialogue, which, coming from advertising myself, I know that any brand seeks to get closer to the consumer. And that is, of course, what a fan and an artist are. So I think Jay-Z put it very well, because this just backs up the fact that there's an awful lot of music being produced which has no audience, people like me, possibly. And Jay-Z said it very well. He said, listen, every country thinks they've got 50 great artists. The truth of it is there aren't 50 great artists in the world. And that is very, very true. Because just because you play an instrument, like myself, does not make you a composer. Just because you can write does not make you a writer. It is a different skill. Many session musicians who I know can't compose. They're very proficient players. So what we have to do is to focus on the successful artists. So here's the artist, and here's the gaming generation. What are they doing? They're all doing all sorts of frightening things as far as rights owners are concerned. They hate it, they try and sue you, they try and sue the individuals. They do everything they can to protect their outdated method for delivering the IP. It's extraordinary. But our viewpoint is that it's all around the artist. You've got to see what the fans are doing, and you've got to supply them. Once you work that out, you will actually find how to make some money. A good example of that is Lady Gaga, who I personally am not a fan of, but she's shifted 40 million units. That's an extraordinary number, and one song is 9.4 million units. If you can just find a way to take a percentage of that and double it or treble it, multiply the revenue from one single artist, you're onto a big thing, you're onto a gold mine. The brand is built for you, the marketing is done for you. You can go on the coattails of them. So, how do we make sense of what is, I think Jesse Shell said, as complete chaos? We have huge amounts of numbers online communicating. I'm not sure creating is quite the right word, but communicating with each other. What do we do with that? What we have to do is we have to tap into it, and we have to take their will to socialize and to communicate and to tweet and turn this into music. Turn it into something that they feel is personal and represents their love of that artist and their love of their friend. It can be different for each friend. Then we say, well, are there any indicators that you can make money from this? And looking at iTunes, of course, there's 150 million credit cards there on a wonderful frictionless transaction in a walled garden. You should be able to make some money there. And then China Mobile, in a territory that's known to be deaf to all IP owners, has somehow made $1 billion from ringtones. This is extraordinary stuff. It's going on. But the music industry is sadly pretty deaf to this. So I'm now going to risk my reputation, if there is one, and try and do a live demonstration. So bear with me while I try and get it onto the internet. Show you what our way of thinking is. And here we have, can you see that all right? Yes, you can. Is Agnes. Agnes is a Swedish artist who is signed to Universal in the US, specifically IGA, which is run by a man who's famous for promoting, he created Lady Gaga, he created the Pussycat Dolls, he created the Black Eyed Peas, he created a number of these artists. He's extremely good. He's called Jimmy Iovine. So she's top to be the next big thing. So let's assume she has a big fan base, and these fans know who she is, they're energized by her, they want to collaborate and be part of her. They don't value the mixes that you can buy because all their friends are sharing them with them. There's no value in that. But there is some value in being able to hear something different and to be able to participate. So, this is the original song. That is not the original song. I've just created it. As you can hear, they're completely different versions, yet it's absolutely the same song. And this is the basic premise from our music. Sorry, I'll let it change here. So if I want to build something, this becomes entirely mine. There is nobody else that is... No, I don't like that. I'll take that off. No, I don't think the Bond theme works there. So that becomes mine. Nobody else has got that.